ready, we can do that. We'll wait for Colin, and it looks like we got the sign, so the stream is up and running, so we are able to start at your discretion.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, everybody, for being here this morning. Appreciate it. I'll call the meeting of the Finance Committee of the Airport Authority to order. First item on the agenda, Sylvette, let's do a roll call vote, see who's here.
Will do, sir. Frank Facciano.
Present.
Ron Heckman. Larry Hamburger.
Present.
Glenn Friedman. Mike Stershik.
Here.
We have 3. But we also have Matt on, so he serves as a quorum.
Yeah, do we want to check in? Matt, are you?
Matt, are you available?
Available for,
A quorum.
sure.
All right.
Thank
great.
you. We're good, John.
Okay, thanks, Sylvette. Appreciate it. Thank you, Matt, as well. And welcome again, everyone. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Do we have any public comment for the meeting this morning?
We do not, sir.
Okay, sounds good. Next then are the action items. First is the approval of the meeting minutes from April 22nd, 2021. Sylvette had emailed those out to the committee members. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. Motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second then in as well. Any additions, deletions, corrections, or discussion points? Hearing none, all those in favor of the subject motion indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next is approval of the 2020 financial audit. This is where I get to turn it over to Todd. Todd, you're there, I assume?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks. Thanks, John.
Okay.
Good morning.
Thank you.
I have Scott. Looks all nice and refreshed there with a little crow in the back. And I guess Kevin's down there as well. So I'll turn it over to them to talk about our 2020 audit. So that you have that one page to pull up,
Which one would you like?
the PDF page that I sent you. The one page.
This one?
No, I sent you the exhibits, the financial exhibits with the PDF in there. One page, cash flow.
The cash flow? Yes, I have that for you. Right here?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Scott, Kevin, you there? We put up the cash flow from the audit. That was the page you wanted to highlight on there, so I'll turn it over to you at this point. Thank you.
Right, so good morning, everyone. This is Scott Nickerson from Crow, the partner responsible for the audit engagement for this year. Also have with me Kevin Kurzwick, who's a senior manager, who's going to give you some overview. We thought, knowing that the draft financials were provided late last week, we thought we'd just do some highlights and not have to go through 50 pages of details, but to give you highlights verbally related to the audit and also some qualitative feedback for your purposes as the Finance Committee. Overall, we're reporting on your 12/31/2020 audit. Although 20 was probably a challenging year for the airport industry, we're very happy with the preparation that management had in both planning and providing information related to the audits. Overall, our audit report and reporting process is very similar. We did work remotely in serving the airport this year due to safety protocols and also the ability for management to provide information electronically, and also had several status calls to go through some of the newer and challenging items throughout the year, such as your CARES Act funding and other activities. Overall, we plan to issue a unqualified opinion both on the financial statements as well as your compliance with your federal funding requirements. And also we provide an opinion on your compliance with your passenger facility charge program. So within the draft documents you received, you will see several opinions, the financial statement opinion in the front, and then the compliance and PFC opinions in the back. From the standpoint of the CARES Act and impact on the airport industry, obviously we've seen a variety of impacts depending on the size of the airport authority as well as the mix of funding and mix of revenues that you generate. I think the common issue is, obviously lack of passenger traffic that impacted most of our clients, throughout the country. We're actually working with some smaller airports as well as larger ones. And most recently, we're going to be starting work with Washington, D.C. or MWA Airport Authority, which gives us a good variety of working with, an entity the size of Lehigh who has issues as a smaller operator, as well as seeing some issues from the larger operators throughout the country. Kevin's going to give you a few highlights on the financial statements themselves and point out where there might be differences in how we presented things from the prior year.
Sure. So one key item that you'll see here in the audited financials that changed is the fiduciary fund reporting. So there was a new accounting standard in the current year. GASB 84 required governmental entities to report their fiduciary fund activities in addition to their normal operations. So you'll see some additional pages in there to report fiduciary fund activities for the two benefit plan financial statements. And the benefit plans did have a positive year on the investment income. So you'll actually see that net pension liability moved to an asset in the current year, a contra liability. So that'll be a significant change you see there. If you want to touch on the cash flow real quick, I'll walk through that at a high level. If you want to pull that PDF back up.
Hold on 1 second there, Kevin. We're having some technical issues here. Give us 1 second. And as Kevin indicated, our pension is now 100% funded. So that's why he said it is now shown as an asset. We're over 100% funded on both plans, which is key. In our audit, I know he touched on that a little bit. So it's different, slightly different from what it was in previous years when it was not 100% funded. So this year we were managed to become 100% funded.
So Todd, you're telling me I'm not allowed to complain this year?
Well, you can still complain, John. We wouldn't have it any other way, but less to complain about. How about that?
Okay, fair enough.
So from a cash flow perspective here, you'll see the net cash provided by operating activities. While the operating revenues were down, there was also, some cuts on the expense side, less traffic, less activities. So the net cash provided from operating was about $4.5 million. But that was offset somewhat with new grants that were coming in, so CARES Act funding, and then also just increased activities on some of your capital grants, which were, of course, spent on the acquisitions of capital assets, which accumulated to about $33 million in cash outflows. So on this page, you'll see overall cash decreased $1.6 million from the prior year.
We need to see the screen.
I think one of the key drivers obviously is the federal grant funding provided to balance out the activities. So if you could scroll down slightly to the second half of that page, you can see the capital grants received at $27 million, as well as there's some operating grants at the federal and state level that were increased over the prior year. And you also see that you had some grants that you had received and passed through to another entity, which is reflected in that $2.2 million. The reason we focus on the cash flow is really the key balancing point for you, because when you're thinking about your agreements with airlines, you're always trying to balance out, the bottom line as far as what you're able to provide to the airlines to keep the costs down, as well as being able to maintain your operations. So we always look at cash flow as being a primary driver.
Hey, Scott, can you say that one more time? I don't know if they heard you.
Cash flow is very important, right? So, we focus on that from the standpoint of, looking at the reliance on your capital funds and your state and local funds to balance out when you have, a pandemic type impact on your airport. The funding for the airline industry has been, well received, and there's good, more on the horizon, I believe. But I think what you guys have done all along is maintained a reasonable debt profile, which I think is important for an airport at your size, although you have, you know, $44 million of debt plus capital leases, I still think we've seen a lot of airports that having much more debt in their profile as far as improvements and so forth. So I think that's kept it down, as well as keeping your pension funded. I think you're one of the few clients that Kevin and I have that is fully funded in their pension, which is a good way to stay on top of some issues that other airports have had with long-term commitments and liabilities. The other thing we think about is, you know, we've gotten through today, we see a net decrease in cash. A lot of that's driven actually by your acquisition of capital assets. You'll see the 33 million invested during the year. So that's really the primary driver of funding, you know, the cash flows for the year. From an operating standpoint, you were able to generate a positive 4.5 million, which is at the top of the page. So when we're looking at this overall, you know, what you've done historically has allowed you to get through significant challenges during the year. But I still think it's critical to be looking at your budget, looking at how you're using both the operating funds and capital funds, whether they're from the, you know, airport improvement program or through additional CARES Act funding. Still a critical juncture going forward, because for many of the airports that we're working with, although they're seeing signs of, you know, passenger and commercial upticks. In fact, I've flew a lot of planes this weekend. I can give you evidence that airports are alive and kicking. I still think it's, you know, from a budgetary standpoint, the way you've approached it and looking at your cash flows, looking at your, you know, long-term commitments has been helpful to get through the current year. And that's really just a qualitative review of your activities, or sorry, quantitative review. But from a qualitative review standpoint, we're excited to report there really weren't any significant difficulties in conducting the audit. There were no material adjustments made. We did have one waived adjustment that related to employer contribution to the pension plan that did not get recognized on the pension plan, although it was an obligation on the airport authority's books. So it made a slight timing difference. And that was, how much was that, Kevin? About 70,000 or so?
It was 67,000. And so the authority has a liability for what they owe to the plan. And
right, but the plan did not recognize that asset and in conducting the valuation. So I think it was just a timing issue as far as when the valuation was done. And
it'll be reported
and
in
recording.
2021.
Yep. So we didn't view that as being significant. There were no you know, big changes from an accounting standpoint that impacted your financial statements. But as Kevin indicated, there were some GASBs implemented that required some additional disclosures. One, as he mentioned, was the presentation of a fiduciary fund, which is recognizing the airport authority's responsibility for holding the assets of the pension plan. And so Kevin mentioned two new statements there. Related to your debt, there's a new requirement to disclose two things. One is the type of debt you've issued, whether it's directly placed or whether it's publicly traded. Your bonds are directly placed with the bank, so we reflect that in the footnotes, as well as disclosures on if there are any events of defaults and what the remedies are for events of default related to your bonds. And I believe we added some disclosure related to that, stating that the trustee does have the ability to call the debt should you miss payments and don't remedy, or I'm sorry, miss payments is be a common reason, but any event of default that's not remedied could result in a trustee calling the debt. Now, there are different steps you can take, from point A to point B, but it does just point out once again that, making sure you're tracking your debt service requirements, meaning your covenants, which are disclosed as well, are important pieces to managing your overall debt profile. Kevin, did I miss anything as far as highlights?
No, I think that was the highlight. As far as the federal grants go, we've commonly audited the airport improvement grant, but you'll see some increases there related to CARES Act and then some specific CARES Act grants. We did have to audit the Coronavirus Relief Fund, the 21018 I just had over $1 million of expenditures, almost entirely payroll related. And since that program was over the $750,000 threshold that the Office of Management and Budget has set as the type A threshold, we had to audit that second major program this year. So we were doing some payroll controls testing and making sure that those expenses were all allowable, and there were no issues. But those were the highlights on the financial side, and then just an additional program on the federal grants audit side. But no, I think you hit all the other highlights there, Scott.
Right. I think one of the things I do recommend, if you haven't had a chance to go through in detail the financial statements, management does a great job of preparing management discussion and analysis, which is like a Cliff Notes version of how they saw how the airport how they basically viewed the impact of coronavirus. They provided some details about that within the MD&A, under the current and known facts. They've also talked about the changes in the activities year over year, provide just a little more information, about what the airport's doing, both on a current basis as well as looking forward to the future. I think that's a good way to, for finance committee or board to get a high level analysis of what's happening on the income statement side. They highlighted on page 7 and 8 of the MD&A when some of the main reasons for operating revenue increases or decreases, as well as analysis of expenses that will give you some information about how they managed expenses. Some expenses went up, due to the COVID response and healthcare and public safety. Some expenses went down due to the contraction of activities. I think wages and benefits were one of those areas as it relates to cargo ground handling, as well as your decisions to look at managing expenses, knowing that the uncertainty of your funding sources for the year. So that's really a good way to get a good feel for how management perceives things. If you think about it from a overall reporting standpoint, as we mentioned, no material adjustments were made. There are some adjustments that management makes only at year end, such as your pension and OPEB or pension or OPEB type adjustments, but nothing that we saw that was significant compared to what you received throughout the year. So I think that's the most important thing to be thinking about if you're looking at information throughout the year, having some level of assurance that there aren't big changes that come, just for audit time, which I think can be reassuring as a committee member. All right, I think that from a high level, that's what we wanted to cover with you. So basically, bottom line is clean financial opinion, clean compliance opinions for your federal grants and PFCs, no significant adjustments, no significant difficulties with management, and we won't be issuing a separate letter because there really aren't any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses to report to you today. I think that's all something that we take for granted, but I think it really is the result of Todd, Karen, and their team, doing their due diligence every day of the year, in making sure that they're looking at activities. And I think one of the things they've done well is reached out to us when there are questions about how to handle a transaction, whether it's new capital leases or your debt agreement where you deferred some of your debt payments. We were able to talk through those type of things throughout the year rather than having to deal with them at year end, which I think is helpful in managing your time and avoiding potential surprises as to how activities might get reported. Todd or Karen, did you have anything else to add?
No, I think you covered the highlights. Again, as you indicated, we got a clean audit. Everything you've seen during the year is indicative of our financial situation. So when you're looking at financials, you should feel good about that. And you didn't tell them, Scott, that we were the first one to go virtual last year when we did our audit.
Oh, yes.
And then
yes.
we're number 2, so we were the first ones to go virtual last year. And the challenges of doing some of this stuff virtually when you're trying to test stuff, but we got through it. Karen, as always, has done a phenomenal job. She doesn't like to take a lot of credit, but she does a great job, and as well as the rest of the team. So that's all I have to say. Does anybody have any questions for Scott or Kevin at this point, or me or Karen at this point?
Yep, open up the floor. Questions from any of the committee members or other board members that may be in attendance.
Good job.
Thank you.
Frank, you had your finger up. Was that a question or no? Okay, no question for Frank.
All right, well, thanks.
Good work.
All right,
Yep,
thank you.
thank you. I want to thank the audit team. I want to thank both staff and our external auditors. Great report. The fact that we get accurate information on at least a monthly basis from a board perspective makes everyone's job a lot easier. So Todd, Karen, thank you very much. And external auditors, again, thank you for your work. And look forward to getting you back, getting away from all these virtual audits, virtual meetings and everything, and getting everybody back in the room together.
Great, thank you.
Thanks again,
Okay.
Scott,
Todd, I
Kevin.
believe we need a motion accepting the 2020 financial audit, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, I'll
So
entertain a
moved.
motion for same.
Second.
Motion by Frank, second. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second?
Yep.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the subject motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Again, thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is the April 2021 financial statements. We actually have people going through the airport, so we have numbers coming through the financials. So life is good.
So I guess that means you're passing it off to me, right there?
That's exactly right, Todd.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate that.
This is working well. Why we want a good thing?
There you go. No, thank you. So we have some actual positive news for April. April, you know, if you remember when we did our budget, we used 2017 as kind of our benchmark. In April, we got back to the 2017 level. As you can see, in April of 2017, we're at 56,000 and change. We're at 55,000 and change in April. That number is humongous. You can remember last year, April, we were in the heart of the pandemic. We had 2,700 passengers, so hopefully this trend will continue. But that's really good news for us as we start getting into traffic levels close to what we were used to in the past. So we're getting back to the old norm, and it kind of highlights, which we'll talk about a little bit later, why it was important for us to continue moving along on the connector project. Because again, the 2017 level is when we said we need to improve our facilities and make sure we can handle that traffic going through here. So the fact that we're already there and tells us that what we did was on target. Next slide. Again, we did this last month. We talked about the landings, but you can see the landings are up versus budget. Still down some from last year, but you see that landing weight, which is what I always focus on because that's what pays the bills. I know Frank, every time I look at landing weight, I think of Frank going, that's a sexy thing when you talk about the landing weight, not landings. But, you know, we're up 20% on landing weights, still down a little bit from last year, but landing weight is how we make our money. Flights are nice, but again, landing weight is critical. Next slide.
Before we go to the next slide on landed weight, how is freight tracking?
Freight's tracking pretty good. We're actually expecting to get an additional cargo flight in the next week or two. So cargo weight is doing great. I mean, if you think about it from a perspective, we have more passenger landings, but cargo weight pays the bills. It's 60% plus on the cargo weight. So that's what really is subsidizing for all intent purposes on the passengers because they're paying the bulk of the landing weight. Did I answer your question there, John?
Yep, you did. Thank you.
You want to come in, man, and sit down and join us? It's not the same without you being in the front row. You know, net income, we had a good month of April, net income of 801, and that's a little misleading, and I'll talk about that later, but again, we had 801 versus, so we were favorable pretty much versus budget. We were expecting to be kind of flat, but we put in a lot of CARES money this month, 521, so that really impacts the number. Aviation services has really worked well for us during the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. It's really been helping us out significantly. And parking is close to budget, so I start to feel good about that. And we actually have new equipment in there, so that should hopefully keep things moving along. But again, we keep managing our expenses as we move along to get back to a level where we can be sustainable. Next slide. Again, this is year to date. You can see kind of we expected to be really in the hole. 966 were a positive, but again, that's extremely misleading because, you know, you've got some CARES money in there, and you also have those easements that we did when we sold the Rockefeller property. So that's 639, and as John already says, that's non-recurring income, so don't get used to it. It's the, you know, it's the tax return money. Don't spend it all in one place. But, you know, it's good to have. We certainly can use it. But you can see that's made up with 761,000 of CARES reimbursement as well. Parking revenue, again, for the month it was okay, but for the year, which again is our #1 revenue generator, is down 20% versus budget. But for the month of April, like I mentioned earlier, we were on target. So hopefully that trend will continue and we'll make up some of that shortfall going forward. Next slide. Really wanted to talk about this month a little bit about sustainable income because, you know, we get into these things and it's very misleading when you see CARES. You say, hey, you guys are making all this money and doing what? And I think of sustainability. You know, with that CARES money, it's nice, but at some point it's going to be gone. And if we can't sustain ourselves, then it's not helpful at all. So what you see on that top line is the budgeted number. So this number up here, this budgeted number, that 539 across, that's the budgeted number without CARES, any of the CARES money, and without any miscellaneous kind of one-time income. And you can see every single month we budgeted significant losses without CARES money. So that means when CARES money goes away, if there was no CARES money, our budget would have been $1.7 million in the hole. But you can see down there what's actually happened. So we had 219,000 loss without CARES and without miscellaneous income in January, above budget, 531 in February. And remember, February was an awful month as far as snow. So even with that bad month, we still came in slightly below budget. Again, good stuff, we can manage our expenses. And then see what's happening here in March, at yellow. We're positive. That means, you know, we don't need the subsidy. We were positive $21,000 last month, $22,000 a month. That's positive. That means without CARES, we covered ourselves. We were self-sufficient. We don't need mommy and daddy to take care of us anymore. We got it ourselves. And then you go to here, for the month of April, $269,000, we're in the green. Again, two positive numbers. No month for the first quarter we budget positive numbers, but we have 2 consecutive months of positive. And some of that's associated with the traffic, but again, that's a very positive sign for us. Because what it does is it gives us the flexibility to use some of that CARES discretionarily to help ourselves out along the way because we don't need it long term. Because what we've been doing is, if you think about what we've been doing long term, is we've been kind of rationing it out, using it because we're going to need it as a life preserver. You know, we don't know because let's face it, there's no more CARES money coming. So what we've got in these last few rounds is it, and we need to be self-sustaining at this point. So that way we can use that money strategically and in a good way without worrying about what's going to happen next year because we're already in a good place. Does that make sense? Yes.
So this increase is mainly due to the fact that we have so much non-passenger, like,
Cargo, you mean?
cargo, thank you. Cargo, right?
Actually, no. This is, a lot of this is associated with aviation services. We're getting the flights there, and that is the, and our passenger traffic is up on parking. Now, how many times have you heard me say parking is our #1 revenue source? It isn't this year. Our #1 revenue source is aviation services.
Oh, okay.
It's this year.
So we can expect that when there's an increase in all the regular traffic flow and everything else is copacetic, that we're gonna see a lot, like if we're in the green now, we could potentially see a really good year in 2021.
Let's temper our expectations. Don't get too excited now.
Good, and then we'll get to really good.
I'm saying we had
Okay,
two
so-
good months and we budgeted 4, but your point is well taken, which is, yes, it's trending positively, but again, stranger things have happened, so,
True, so don't like count all your chickens, yeah.
correct. But again, we're starting to see a positive, like I said, first 4 months, we had no months budgeted without CARES and without miscellaneous income in the positive. The fact that you've got positive numbers, half of the 4 months of the year, that's something to be encouraged about.
We're not even
My,
in the summer
my
yet.
my second comment I wanted to make was, don't forget Heroes money too.
Right.
So CARES is done.
But there's some additional grants coming.
And then Heroes money is coming as well.
But it's still one-time dollars.
It's one-time dollars, so,
And,
Oh, I thought Heroes was spread over this
well,
year and next
that's-
year.
So we also deferred some debt payments, and I think that's the other thing that we know.
Gotta remember
Some of the
that.
things we did in survival mode were short-term implementation of cost savings or cash preservation, knowing that in a year or two, we're gonna have to, payment will come due. And so some of those payments and some of those grant funds we can use for debt service, and that's important too.
Okay. So I guess I'm just trying to think that we're not necessarily in survival mode anymore. We're not treading water. We're really doing a lot better than we were a year ago. And definitely
Absolutely.
that's a credit to all of the staff who's been working on it. But it just seems very positive.
Yeah, I mean, and you may have missed what Todd had said, but it really is important. When we look at March, 5% increase in passenger traffic, and then we get back to April of 2021, and we're back to 2017 levels. Now, when we get back to that 2019 levels we've talked about, kind of getting back to where we left off, is still going to be a little bit, and that's still going to take a little time.
Right.
But the fact that we're even at 2017 levels right now is great. And now the question is that going to carry? Are we going to see that through the busy summer travel season? We hope like all of those sort of trends continue, but we'll have to keep monitoring that each month.
In order to get Mr. Brightside over to optimism, I think we're gonna need to see that bottom row be all green for trailing 3 months.
For a few
I guess
months.
I'm
At least
a
for a
little
few
bit more,
months.
I mean, I saw your presentation at the county council the other day, and
Sure.
I think the trends were very positive. And I
They
think
were.
that's definitely a testament to
Mr.
all the
Brightside?
management. Yeah, I'm trying to be optimistic. It's been a rough year. We need a little good news, right?
Yeah, we'll take the good news.
and the other thing I think is really important, I'll talk about that in the next slide too as well. We've been, and I mean, Darren, close your ears, but you cannot cut your way to success. We've been really managing our expenses. We have to build our revenue in order for us to survive long term. So, we've been really pushing our expenses down in survival mode. That's not sustainable long term.
No, it's not.
It's not, and we want to take care of our folks, and we have a lot of folks here working hard and doing anything. And with increased traffic means you have to increase your staff. So it's not like this comes, it's not like all free cash. It's like when when your passengers go up, you have to increase your expenses as well. So again, the net is positive. That's a good trend. Mr. Brightside will hopefully be a little bit happier when we get May. But our peak season, which is good, because if you remember our budget, we talked about the second half of the year, that comeback. We're on track to get back to 2019, maybe by the fourth quarter at this point, which is really a positive sign from a traffic standpoint. Next slide there, Savette.
Yeah, knock on wood.
You can actually see it. You can actually see it here.
No, that's not all right.
And this is the rest of the year's budget in 4-month intervals. So you can see May, June, July, August, all of those months. This is our budgeted number without CARES and without miscellaneous income. Every month negative. But you can see in June, July, and August, May, July, and August, you can see that they're not as low because those are more of our busy time. So that's the seasonality of our business. Still negative, but not as negative in our budget. So again, if that trend continues, hopefully we should be in a good place.
Yeah, so I have one other question too. I know that we had Transbridge here,
Uh-huh.
right? So a
Did
lot
you
of
say
people
had?
will have, you know what I mean? So during the pandemic, though, not as many people were using it to commute or anything like that. Has that gone up? Are people using that to commute?
It's going up.
Tariff's definitely creeping up a little bit.
It's creeping up, yeah, because, so in my thought pattern, I was thinking that we've invested a lot to have that here, and now we have the commuting to like New York and maybe Philadelphia or wherever, New Jersey, kind of ticking down. Are people going to return back to work, or are they going to start telecommuting, and is that going to level off a little bit and affect projections to what we thought they should have been before the pandemic?
Well, before you get too good, Transbridge is not a significant portion of our overall revenue.
Okay, so it
It is
doesn't.
not.
Okay.
I mean, it's an amenity we have here, it's something we want to offer, but our big passenger traffic is leisure. That's why, we want to recover faster. That's why we anticipate recovering faster than, airports that have more international travel and also airports that had more business travel, because that's going to lag behind. So for us, what pays the bills is not Transbridge. Don't get me wrong, we enjoy Transbridge being here, but they are not significant as far as overall revenue.
I did remember the conversation last year too, when people were talking about how it's much easier, or a lot of businesses are switching over to driving their business clients to wherever they need instead of taking a flight. Because being in an airplane with a bunch of other people, not as safe as being in a car with maybe one or two for your business travels. Is that something that's gonna come back, like we're feeling? The trend is we're feeling safe flying.
I don't know if you've seen our videos that we have in there, but I think a plane is pretty safe to fly in, and we've made our airport very safe as well. So that whole kind of transformation coming in from the parking lot to here, that whole ride is very safe. Probably as safe as you are in a car.
Yeah, and I think domestic business travel, I think most of the airlines are saying they're feeling like we're going to see it start to come back third, fourth quarter of this year. I don't think get it back to where it was, but start to see business. Looking ahead, conventions and things are booking starting later in the year. People are really starting to see the larger, so that we will start to see some of that. But again, like Todd said, we're so leisure travel driven. That's actually a good thing for us in this case, really, because we're going to see it come back, I think, much quicker than the larger airports.
Yeah, because I noticed we didn't get our temperatures checked today, so that's gone too.
We need to do that.
Right.
Are you okay?
I have my vaccine. I'm okay. But
People that I've talked to that were business travelers, regular business travelers, are saying they don't know when they're going to be back to travel, to flying.
Okay.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, what are the trends? Because the trends are going to affect your projections.
But that's why it's good that we're leisure oriented, because we don't have to worry about that to the same degree.
Yeah, and people are going to Florida now. They're excited to go to Florida.
Yeah, people are going to Florida, they're going to Tennessee, they're going to the Finger Lakes. I was there this weekend. We should see some fairly significant increases in that regard. Todd, Tara, thanks for the great questions. Appreciate it. Want to make sure we have the opportunity to cover everything this morning.
Thank you.
We've got a pretty full agenda with our other committees as well. So.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I had it. Thanks, John. Next slide. This is our top revenues. You heard me say aviation services is up there as well. You can see they're number one from a revenue perspective. You see that up there. I mentioned that earlier. 52% higher than budget. You see that up top, which is what I talked about earlier. Parking, all the way at the bottom, 20% negative. Next slide. You can kind of see what makes up our significant budget impact. 649 as the easements. Fuel, again, the aviation services, I've talked about it over and over and over. Connie, we talked about it during the summertime, it's going to be during the wintertime, the icing and how that impacted us. So you can kind of see what's going on here. Remember, we eliminated a lot of our bad debt. That's, we did that going forward because we felt good about some of the cares and being able to do that. So again, you can kind of see what makes up that huge budget variance. But again, it starts with some things at the top, but it's revenue driven. Next slide.
So operations and maintenance, that's taking care of the various buildings around here, right?
Operations and maintenance, yes.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Okay, so, in terms of, like, where our firefighters are and things like that,
Yes.
who takes care of that building and where does that budget come from? That comes from, like, this budget right here, right?
It comes from the budget, yes.
Right, and so when they make a request, what happens to that request for, like, maintenance? Like, who does that go to? You?
There's a work order system, things get input into a work order system.
Okay, have they put any requests in? Because when I went down to the building, I noticed two things. One, that the floor had huge cracks in it, and it just looked like it hadn't been maintained or painted, or like the cement was cracking. And then two, their duct system desperately needs to be cleaned. There's like black soot on every single main ventilation. It's like it needs to be cleaned out. I think that's a health and safety issue for them, you know, and the other one's a little bit more aesthetic. But I wondered if they actually put those work orders in for that, and they were just delayed because we're in that survival mode. And now that we're coming out of survival mode, maybe we can like start to address some of these other maintenance needs for the health and safety. I mean, they're firefighters.
Well,
you know.
I'm going to stop right there.
Go ahead.
Health and safety is number one in our airport. Through the whole pandemic, 100% that was our top priority.
Mhm.
They put in a request, it will be taken care of.
Okay.
That's just the way it is. You put in, we have a budget. Every department has a budget that rolls up. So again, you put in a request, but we don't skimp on health and safety. We
Okay.
don't do that. So cracks in the floor, you can
Yeah.
put in there, but health and safety, if they put in a request, so we will be
Well,
on that as soon as we
Can
can.
you just look back and see if they did put a request, and if not, maybe somebody should go down there and just look around, because, like, I even noticed the air there was, like, my allergies were, like, going, like, not just because it's allergy season.
And to
Like,
be
inside the building, it's,
And I'm just going to say this, be respectful of John, and he already said, because we do have a full agenda.
sure,
And
sure,
your points are good. Steve's here.
okay,
He's in charge of maintenance. You can certainly touch base with him, and we'll look into it for you for sure. I'm not trying to cut you off, but
no, you should.
that's
Fine.
not really a finance issue. That's just more of an area. But again, okay. So again, you can see, again, like I mentioned earlier, aviation services is number one. Normally parking's number one, but aviation services has really helped us out. Parking slowly moving up. You can see what's going on here. And this is net after expenses. So this is net cost centers. Income and loss by cost center. Next slide. Cash flow, you can kind of see here some of the changes. Those ones in yellow, we changed some of the things because we did make some tweaks to our budget. We had our budget adjustment last month, and it really doesn't change the overall, it just changed some of the timing. That's why none of the revenue numbers changed, it just changed the ones on number 2 up there. This here, number 10 and 11, is the new debt service, which we're going to talk about in our ad hoc, and that's kind of built in there, and we can talk about that, and some of the timing of that. You can see it on 14 and 15 and on 10 and 11 for this year. Much less of an impact this year because a lot of it's interest only, but it's on the line. It's on there. Next slide. Again, you can see maintaining our thresholds that we talked about above that 60 days after all reserves, and even still, we still have all of that reserved for future debt service on there. But the numbers start to go down the next 6 months. I have it out actually 2 years. You can actually see it go down. But certainly, it's a lot better when you inject some of the loan proceeds that we desperately need going forward. And I think that's it. Sorry for the extended version there. I wanted to make sure I answered all the questions. And Tara, if you have any additional questions, you can certainly touch base with me or Steve or any of the other directors after the meeting. Anybody else have any questions?
Todd, I just have a comment.
Yes.
We're looking at the leisure traffic as a bump right now. I'm talking to some of the people in the corporate community, Air Products, Buckeye, and while they've been working virtual for a year, they're foreseeing maybe 2 or 3 visits to outlying areas where before it used to be 10, but they are going to come back on the road again, even though they may continue to be working virtual.
That's an excellent point, and there's no such thing as all virtual. face-to-face is still going to be an important part of businesses going forward. Any other questions?
I agree with that.
Yep. Any other questions from any of the committee members? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to accept the April financial reports.
So moved.
Have a motion, second?
Second.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the subject motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Todd, thank you for that report and the level of detail as we're coming out of the pandemic, understanding all the moving parts, where we see things and where we see things going is good information to have. So thank you. And Tara, thank you as well for the great questions. And please do follow up with Steve and with Todd on the remainder. Want to make sure we get all the issues on the table and addressed. So next on the agenda is the financing update. I assume that's on the bridge project. So Todd, take it away.
Yep.
Oh, okay. And Savette, just pull back the cash, that exhibit that I just did a minute ago. The financial one. Well, not that one, financial. The one I just did. And go to slide 11. We're going to really cover this in ad hoc, really go through the details of this, but, you know, we're excited that we're scheduled for closing actually next week. We're going to walk through all that stuff a little later, and I don't want to steal that thunder, but you can see here it's showing up on our debt service, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, on lines 10 and 11. We have 2 loans, and I'm just going to give you a quick touch base on that, and then we'll do it later. We have 2 loans totaling a total of $23 million, $15 million fixed or amortized long-term, and then we have a bridge for grants of up to another 8. And the first 2 years is interest only. That's why you see that the actual impact is very small on the cash flow. We are not getting these proceeds all at once. This is on a reimbursement basis. So that's why you're seeing this money down here coming in kind of as anticipated. So again, we'll touch base on this in our ad hoc meeting, but I just wanted to mention that really quick. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Todd. Any questions? Okay, hearing none. Any new or old business to bring before the committee? Okay, hearing none. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion, so we are adjourned. Matt, how much time do you think we need between this and the business committee meeting?
I think we roll right into business, then we take a little break for exec.
Okay, sounds good.
Because I think we've got, so that, correct me if I'm wrong, but do we have sufficient attendance?
Yes.
Cool, all right. Welcome, I'm gonna sit in for Mike Dowd and chair the business committee meeting today. We've got some marketing updates ahead of us, but welcome everybody to the business committee. We'd start with Sylvette quickly calling roll.
Brian Gaines.
Here.
Jeff Matskin.
Jeff was on.
Here.
There we go.
Chris Worley. Tara Zirinsky. Here. Okay, we have quorum.
Very good. And do we have public comment?
We do not, sir.
Okay. First order of business for the business committee is the approval of April's meeting minutes, which are in Novus for your review. I'd ask for a motion to approve the meeting minutes of April 22nd, 2021.
So moved. Or a second.
Second.
Brian, Tara. All in favor of approving the minutes as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, somebody's got some explaining to do.
Yeah, Steve's all set.
Steve, do you want to jump up and walk us through this one?
Something about Todd saying we got a lot of money. I come up with ways to spend a lot of money. So that I have some images attached that might be helpful to.
Thanks, Steve.
To explain.
Did Darren back a truck into the door? Is that what happened?
So this is basically due to the emergency spending amount for Tom. We need to approval to spend the $58,000 and change to repair these upper roller assemblies on the hangar 9 doors. This hangar was built in about 1996. This hangar is the hangar that was built to house the 737, so the doors are about 38 feet tall. So that picture, maybe 2, yeah, one of those. So at the very top of the door, there are roller assemblies that kind of guide the hangar doors back and forth as they're moving. These pipes are actually welded to the top of the door. It's about a 10 or 12-inch pipe with this roller assembly on top. So the doors 1 and 4, the roller assemblies have basically failed, causing the doors to lean in or out depending on what roller wheels have failed. So this expenditure, as I said, is about $58,000 change. 10,000-ish of that is for design and engineering of the new roller assemblies. These assemblies need to be cut out and then fabricated and then reinstalled. The good news is once we get these replaced, they will be serviceable in the future. They won't be completely welded in. And so, you know, if we do have failures in the future, we'll be able to pull the axles out and replace the roller wheels. So,
Can I ask a question on this? Or,
Please.
so, was it corrosion? Was it that they couldn't be lubricated, or is it they were poorly designed? I mean, what was the cause of their current status?
well, so that if you go back to that close-up, I think it was the photo too, they're metal wheels. They roll on a metal I-beam. And basically these wheels, there's a set of rollers here that go left and right and a set of wheels that roll on the track up and down. So it's just, over time, the wheels have worn and failed and they're just not serviceable. They're all, if you look at this, all the axles are all welded. So there's no way to remove grease. There's no grease fittings up there.
No grease zerks or anything like that?
So basically we have to fabricate a new assembly from this pad up. We have to basically cut everything out and reassemble.
So will they be, what will, the new fabrication, what will keep them from failing in the future?
Well,
The fact that you can remove them and service them?
They will be serviceable, yes. So we'll be able to get up there and.
Will they be different material? I mean, will they be better
Well,
material or the same material, just serviceable?
That's a good question. Part of this contract is to design and engineer the new assemblies.
But the doors stay the same. All we're talking about is the wheels.
Right, the wheels on top.
Are the tracks in good shape?
Yes, that was part of the inspection too, was to ensure we're not having issues along the ground.
But this wasn't a failed inspection, this was
Well,
there was a failure,
Go to
mechanism
the
failure.
third photo, so that. So you can actually see, scroll. You can see where the actual, here's the roller assembly is actually
The shaving.
leaning against the track, which is dropping big shavings of metal on the ground.
On the other side.
Certainly a potential health and safety issue to Tara's point.
Or dinging a little piece of steel off a Gulfstream wing or
Yeah.
whatever, so.
Thanks, Steve. So does anyone have any other questions for Steve? Or this is certainly an expenditure that we hadn't anticipated, but this is what happens, Todd, when you let Steve know that you've got money.
He's been hanging out with Aaron.
I think I heard you say you got to spend
This
to make it.
No,
this is
I
at
didn't say
Hangar
that.
9, which is actually New World, which is, one of our larger tenants, so.
But it's an expense that you're gonna have that is maintenance and it will last a long time, so
Yeah, I mean, the building, as I said, the building was built in 96, so.
Did we do 39-year depreciation on buildings?
No.
No. This is a fully appreciated building.
Yeah.
Is that a Megador product, or is that something that was totally?
No, it's not, it's not.
We don't make it doors.
It's not Megador.
Larry, that is not a Megador. These were designed and installed when the hangar was built.
Okay.
what's the life left on these? Like, what's the time frame that you're gonna do this? Cause it says emergency repair, so.
No.
Well,
So when
I
will
mean,
you-
they're still operating. We're inspecting. Are you talking about what's up there now? Yeah,
Yeah, when you say emergency repairs, I figured that has to be done yesterday, so.
we've already signed the contract, so they're
Okay.
working on building it. But The doors are still serviceable. We're inspecting them daily to make sure we're not dropping any more large metal shavings. So, yeah.
Okay.
Well, to your point, I think it's important. That's why we really want to be on top of our depreciation level, because at some point, this has a useful life.
Yeah.
And then at another point, you got to replace the doors or you got to replace equipment. That's just natural. So you have to factor in. That's why those depreciation, that's why you hear me saying about those leverage numbers on the depreciation. Those are the numbers that we're going to have to maintain, because we're going to have to replace stuff and keep replacing them. Servers, equipment, all that stuff is stuff repeatedly we're going to have to keep replacing
But this is,
when their time runs out.
right, this is kind of like the escalator issue, where we
Correct.
talked about replacing it, piecemealing it, and then eventually you have to replace the whole thing. So is it worth more for us to replace the whole entire door, because that door itself does not have a life that would outlive those repairs that you're making to that mechanism? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a valid point. And Ryan, we've actually been discussing, and I know we do have some money in our capital program to replace the hangar doors at Hangar 7, because that hangar was built in 1963 and has the same hangar door.
Put it in perspective for us, Ryan. What's the approximate cost of a total door system replacement?
I mean, without factoring the design, I mean, since it's custom, you're talking over $1 million. Easy.
Yeah, so 60,000.
Oh, so 58,000, good idea, yeah, gotcha.
Thank you, Tara.
Thanks, Ryan.
You know, we're just looking at what the.
So I think, the doors at Hangar 7 were built in, those are original to the hangar also, so that's 60s technology that's probably due for a rebuild sooner than this stuff.
So what do you need us to do, Steve, here?
This is to authorize Tom to spend the $58,000.
Okay, I'd ask for a motion to authorize the executive director to spend. Thank you, Tara. We got a motion, and a second from Brian. All in favor of approving Tom to make those adjustments, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Sounds like we've got some emergency repairs to do. And that concludes our action items. Ryan is going to give us a capital projects update. Sir?
Morning, everybody. All right, so I'll run through our updates as we do every month. Not much has changed, but I'll address the highlights, kind of where we are. The runway 624 rehab, we mentioned last month, we were starting on the taxiway E demolition. As you can see, all the pavement's been removed. They're putting in the amended soils and some of the final grading there, keeping things moving. In terms of package 2, really what we're waiting on is, I think in the next month or two, coordinating around the cargo schedule to do the final paving over on taxiway Alpha section right down here. And again, coordinating with cargo carriers, because that's their only in and out as part of that.
In the last committee, Todd mentioned the addition of a cargo flight. Does that complicate this?
Not necessarily, it's just finding the window. Yeah. We've been coordinating with them, as you'll see with some of the other schedule components. So package 3, dual nightly runway closures, starting July 16th in terms of some nightly work, again, coordinating with all the carriers, cargo, and actually on May 19th, we had a GA outreach discussion for a lot of our tenants and users, just so they were aware of some of the pre-closure work, and then obviously the 2 scheduled airfield closures we've been talking about, September 17th through the 20th, and 28th through the 30th of September. So keeping those conversations going with all the stakeholders as we continue to progress. Again, kind of an image as we've shown before in terms of where we are. Again, they're working in the runway, getting the electrical prep work going, and then taxiway Echo, as we talked about here. The package 4 components, we should be getting the grant next month, talking to the FAA for that work. And kind of as a reminder, that was the taxiway Gulf relocation and some additional paving strengthening within the runway. So we're hoping to get that next month from the FAA for that grant package. But you can see here kind of all the work that we're looking to do basically this year and into next with the runway program. Todd mentioned the main terminal parking lot. New equipment has been installed. May 7th, we opened up short term. This has definitely been a group project with, I know, a lot of Glenn IT and his work coordinating the install, the training, the programming, and then obviously with Todd and his folks with keeping everything moving with the cashiers and so forth. So, you know, working through some of the kinks, obviously with new equipment and software, but we're definitely getting, going the right direction. This week, they're starting on the 2 outer lanes of the exit, and then the 1 entrance lane of long-term. But again, short-term is open, long-term obviously has been open, so keeping an eye on that, but more to come as we transition to the other phases as well.
The kiosks touchless, or do they have the Apple Pay and?
Yes. They do, yeah.
Oh, they have that. Okay.
So they have
Samsung
Google,
Pay, all that.
Samsung, all that, so.
Yep.
Awesome.
Actually, since we took these photos, there's actually some decals that we put on, you know, working with Darren and his folks about, you know, touch here, pay here, those kind of things, so make it a bit more intuitive for folks. Fast and boarding bridge project, the next month or two, we should be finishing up phase 2, the long lead item of the drive columns right here on some of the bridges came in, so we're working on those. And then the phase 3, which is bridges 2 and 10, again, coordinating with the carriers and the schedule to try and actually do most of those in the fall when the schedule drops off. Again, as we've talked about before, some non-LNA funded projects that we're all seeing, the airport road widening and our entrance road. They've really been doing some of the guide rails you've probably seen, some of the crosswalks. Going to be doing more paving as part of that as well. But again, just coordinating our access in and out of the airport.
And that's not gonna be complete till January?
Yep, that's what we've been hearing at this point. So they made a lot of progress, but yeah, it's taking time.
I know it does seem like it's taken
Yeah.
a long time.
Right. So we're just trying to coordinate with PennDOT and their contractor, again, just to reduce our impacts as much as we can.
Because that whole, like when you're coming into the airport, it's just a hot mess.
Yeah.
And it just looks like difficult to navigate. You know what I mean? If you're not.
Yeah,
So
agreed.
the sooner that gets cleaned up, the better it'll be.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're gonna increase your passenger traffic.
Right. So yeah, it's actually good that they've been doing that now when our traffic's a little bit down. As we continue, that'll be part. And again, we're having conversations with them about where, you know, the pavement ties in and other things. So it's not like you get new paving and then you're coming into potholes and everything else. So we're working through that with them. Queen City Master Plan, next month, when we have our GA update, we should have a good update of where we are. We've been coordinating some review with the FAA. We anticipate hearing back from them here in the next few weeks, but nothing new at this point. Structure removal, all of the tree removal was completed earlier this month, as well as doing some of the seeding and final grading. They're kind of doing that this week to the end of the month. And then some of the homeowners did get some of their tree plantings, but because of the sheer volume for Mack trucks and City of Allentown, we're going to do a lot of that planting in the fall. And obviously with where we are, with the weather we've been getting, you know, it's better to plant them in the fall anyways. So coordinating on that, but the bulk of that work is now complete, which is great. Runway 1533 rehab, we did have a electrical design review meeting May 11th down in Queen City with the contractor, our electricians, walking through, just coordinating some of the background. So more to come on that as we continue, but we're continuing with the kind of data gathering and steps forward there. Brayton Air Park, I think I mentioned last month, so the building has been fabricated. It's in Vanguard's factory waiting for installation on site. Where we are right now is we're negotiating the site plan, cost, and proposal with the contractors and Vanguard as part of that cooperative purchasing. We're hoping to get the revised proposal this week in terms of some of the costs. So again, more next month in terms of timing. But we've had a lot of conversations making sure they understand the scope. We're not, you know, including items we don't need and so forth, and obviously cutting down the costs as much as we can. But we're still pushing forward with that.
What's your best guess?
Yeah, we put back the Braden.
Sure. So at this point, if we do get the proposal this week and it's where it should be, we obviously have to coordinate with the state to make sure it was within their parameters and within our budget. And then it's really just coordinating with them on timing of coming out. So whether that's, they can come out in June to start some of that site work, that would be ideal. But then it's working through that with the schedule once everything's been officially signed and we get the price confirm.
So once all of that is done, when it comes time to actually get it out and start putting it in, how much time do we have?
So the building itself, they said, takes about 4 weeks to put up. The site work itself is about another month of work as part of that.
So cutting through the red tape, once all the red tape is taken care of, you have about a month of site work and
About a month.
another month of
For the building.
Okay.
So what we're doing now too is also, coordinating with the township on the permitting, utilities for the hookups for the gas, the sewer and the electric. It's part of that as well. So we're still moving that forward, or waiting for the price on that.
So you did tie into the gas line.
We will be, yeah. Yeah, that was something that should be added based on, it's that efficiency there.
How has the coordination with the township gone?
Good. Yeah, I mean, we had some initial discussions in the past and then kind of, submitting the paperwork. We're working
Did you
with.
have to revise something in their zoning or create like a
They had,
review of some sort?
no, they had, as part of the old fuel, or as part of the newer fuel farm, we had to close out that land development proposal or process. We were working with McTish, our surveyor and local coordinator, as part of that as well.
So that was it, but I thought there was some sort of agreement that.
That's another item that's
That's a
unrelated
whole
to this,
nother
yep.
thing. So that does not affect this.
Because this was an existing facility, so it's replicating that.
Okay.
Yep. So again, hopefully more to come on that next month as we continue to push that forward. And again, just a summary of where we are, no issues in terms of cost at this point, reconciling again some of the field revisions we've talked about for the runway to cover the grant funding we do have so that, we use it and we don't lose it as part of that.
Fantastic.
So I think that's it. Any other questions?
Any big questions for Ryan? Thank you, sir. Always good to see green from you.
Yes.
Darren, you want to lead us through our quarterly marketing update?
Sure, thanks, Matt. So I'm actually not going to do a whole lot of this. See, Megan Verholi and Jenny Miletix are on here. I think Megan and Jenny are going to walk you through some of our digital, the dashboard and some of the performance on that, and a little bit on a new campaign we're pretty excited about. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about our website after that as well. So, Megan, it's all yours.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Megan.
I'm going to actually kick it off to Jenny right away. She's going to take us through our dashboard update.
Welcome, Jenny.
And I think Jenny's been on here before, I think 6 months ago. If you have not met her, Jenny is from our digital marketing agency, Weidenhammer. So they help us with all things digital, kind of helping with new campaign concepts, things like that. Jenny is our official digital marketing architect. So she's specialized in this field. So she's going to take you through the dashboard and give you some updates.
All right, is everyone able to see the dashboard?
That looks good.
Great, awesome. So this is just a high-level overview of your website and your website traffic. This is paid and organic traffic. And we are comparing the last January through May through the previous year. So those are the comparison numbers that we're looking at here. You had 179,000 users to the website, and that was an increase of about 46% from last year. A lot of that is attributed to COVID. We saw a sharp decline in travel, obviously, and so traffic to your website saw the same decline as well. So definitely positive news. New users, 177,000 of those 179,000 were new users, which is good. It also helps support the idea that, we're pushing paid traffic to your website. So it just keeps that threshold a lot higher, which is positive. Average pages per session were 2.2. It is a decrease of about 11%. But again, we are pushing more ads to the website, meaning you're going to see less people staying on the website for a long period of time viewing a bunch of pages, because that's technically not the intention of the ads. Average site duration, almost a minute and a half, and then the bounce rate's right about 50%. And I think we talked about this a little bit last time too. The bounce rate is around 50% because there aren't a lot of calls to action on the website. You can't purchase a ticket. So it's very consumable information, and we don't expect the bounce rate to be super low on the website. For traffic acquisition by channel, majority of your traffic to the website comes from organic search. That's people Googling things and then ending up on your website. So different search terms. Direct traffic is a nice second here, and that's anyone with a link that they're clicking on to get to your website directly. User device, always a hot topic. Mobile is increasingly important to everyone on the internet, but your website sees about 61% of its traffic come from mobile devices. Geography, state of Pennsylvania shown here. We obviously see most concentration around the Philly and Lehigh Valley areas. But you know, a lot of smaller dots, we'll get into that a little bit later as well. We drill down pretty well on those areas. As far as traffic trends, the lighter line is the previous year and the darker line is this year. Right around March, you see this sharp decline, basically from all the COVID stuff. And so we have obviously recovered from that significantly, and just kind of a nice little trend line to look at here. Any questions?
Jenny, how has the user device number, the percentage been tracking?
Over time?
Yeah.
Yep, so historically, you're gonna see just mobile continue to creep up. And, you know, because of that, Megan and I have definitely been paying more attention to what the mobile site looks like to users. So, for instance, Megan will spin off some landing pages for us to push traffic to, and she's putting a heavy emphasis on, you know, what does that look like on a mobile device? Because that mobile traffic does tend to increase, not significantly over time. You're not going to see it jump up to 80% right away, but it will continue to trend upwards as more people use their devices to access the site.
I jump ahead a lot on Darren in these meetings, so maybe I'm predicting something, but do we have opportunities to create more calls to action on the site that link people to airport services? Like, we were just talking about touchless payment for parking. Can we push parking through our website? I mean, are there opportunities like that out there that we can exploit?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're always looking at that. I mean, as far as pushing them, obviously, we do have the call to action buttons that push to let people know we have the parking, but actually doing the payments through the website, things like that. Something we've talked about, you know, having more even rent payments, things like that. It's definitely something that's kind of on the radar, but I think, honestly, you're gonna hear us come back probably towards the end of this year, talking about budget for website redesign. And I think that's probably where a lot of stuff may come into play, because it's time for us to kind of we've really tried to improve this website as much as we can, but now it's really getting to the point that we can't make it, especially when you look at that mobile number we're talking about. Like, it works okay on mobile now. We've made it as mobile friendly as we can, but it's a rebuild of the website, probably not to really get it to where we want it.
Well, if we are going to rebuild it, make sure that we build in ways that can generate some
100%.
revenue for us and for vendors in the airport. So I'm thinking like food ordering, those types of things.
One of the things that we really were excited about with our new parking equipment is the idea of adding in some dynamic pricing.
Yeah.
So that's definitely on our radar as well, where you can kind of reserve it at certain times. So it's definitely on the radar. So we're all on the same page.
I think when you go through a redesign, you need to look at mobile first.
Oh yeah,
That's
100%. You now build a mobile
because of the
site.
way the percentage is now and the way it's going to continue to track. It's not going to change. It's not going to go down.
Exactly. That's exactly what Megan and Jenny and I were talking last week about this, and that's exactly what we said. Like, now you build a mobile site that works well on a PC instead of the opposite.
Correct.
Go ahead.
All right, everyone ready?
Yep.
Okay. Here is a sampling of some of our top performing digital ads. These are all paid ads. So you'll see them on Facebook as you're surfing the web. Google has display ads. These are these top row here. And a couple of our past campaigns. Megan's going to be going through new ads, so that's exciting. But these are the top 4 performing on Google, our Fly Safe campaign, which has now sunsetted, so you won't be seeing this one in the future. And then the now boarding ads for American Airlines, then Delta, then Allegiant. On the social media front, we run destination campaigns currently to different demographics, and we have user personas for each. And these are just the 2 top performing. The first destination is Punta Gorda, and the second is Nashville. questions on this one? Pretty straightforward. Okay, this is the fun one. So this is paid traffic only. And so it's anything that Google has placed. We kind of put emphasis around different areas. So we can filter by that location here. Overall, we saw from January through May, 23,000 clicks and about 5 million impressions. Again, this is a brand campaign, so we're not necessarily emphasizing actions on the website, but more view the information that we're trying to push to you. So Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton, obviously the most significant user activity there. Down here, we also broke it down by ad groups. So we see the remarketing campaign here, clicks and impressions, and then the Fly Safe.
Jenny, you can hold on one sec while they mute that. Sorry. There we go.
Okay. All right, so we broke this out for the ad groups as well. If we wanted to take a closer look at, say, Allentown, we can do that if that interests you. It kind of just zooms into the map location up here and shows you the clicks and then performance by campaign as well. This is just kind of good to look at the specific areas, especially like Bethlehem, for instance. But on an overall basis, definitely high impressions, which is what we're going for information consuming and branding efforts.
And is that, I'm looking at Wilkes-Barre as a key target area for us.
Yep.
How does that compare to year over year?
Year over year, so in the past year or so, we have put a heavier emphasis on Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, and 2 other radii. Megan, can you refresh my memory as to exactly what the radii is around?
Yeah, so obviously around the airport, and then Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, and then the Berks County, Reading area. And so that's why we laid out this chart the way that it is, because you can see results from all of those areas. And so, Matt, we wouldn't really see like a year over year comparison because we only implemented those in paid traffic at the end of last year.
I think it was November timeframe, I think we started them.
Yeah, it was right around Thanksgiving.
Okay.
And I would say it's hard to compare ad performance year over year because there are so many factors as well, the messaging, where you're pushing people to the website, and kind of the goal of the ad itself. Most recently, we had destinations, Fly Safe messaging as well. So that's also taken into consideration when we place the ads. Any additional questions? Okay. All right, and then this is focusing on organic traffic. So no paid traffic here. Everything paid would be filtered out January through May. We see by metro region, Philly obviously leading the charge here. And when I say metro, I mean Philly is including the Lehigh Valley and various areas around us. Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, second, New York, that'd be that whole metro area. DC was interesting to Megan, I believe, and Columbus, Ohio, was that the other one you pointed out as well? We can also filter by location if you're interested in seeing the top destination pages by location. So obviously the homepage is going to be most popular here. Departing flights, nonstop destinations, and then flights being the top 4. Any questions? Okay, and I'll kick it over to Megan.
So here's a little sneak peek of our upcoming marketing campaign. We're calling this the Get There Faster campaign. So time to kind of put the Fly Safe messaging to bed. As we're coming out of the pandemic, we want to get families and the Lehigh Valley excited about traveling again. So this is the new campaign we're going to start to roll out. We have the digital running already. You're going to start to see some other things in the Lehigh Valley, like out of home and some radio. So we've also previously talked about communicating the ease and convenience of traveling through ABE in our marketing. So this is kind of that effort to do that. So we're really excited about just promoting travel and doing it in a fun and sensitive kind of way over the next couple of weeks.
This one gives me a slight pause because faster is distinct from ease and convenience.
What do you mean?
I mean,
Well, when you think about the quality, purely as the quality and as a brand platform, like a kind of a leg of the brand stool.
Differentiation.
Yeah, faster is nice, but it's not easy and convenient, and it summons different ideas here.
Something we can think about. I mean, I like the faster, to be honest, but yeah.
I don't know, in just talking to different families, I mean, that's
one of the things that they like about it, yeah.
They're excited. More and more people that I've talked to have been excited to come through here just because of the speed. They're thinking the length of the lines, the travel time from the parking. You know, you go to Newark and, you know, by the time you park and, I mean, you gotta add another half an hour.
I think when we do support, like when we do the kind of support material around this, the focus is on tying speed to convenience, right? Like that's the only, the note, I think that particularly in this era, like faster summons frantic as opposed to convenient, which are, you know, I don't want to get too much in in your shorts in terms of marketing, but that's one thing that I'm like, whoop, because you focus significantly on ease and convenience.
Sure.
And
I think it's just, you know, you're trying to figure out a way to say this stuff. I mean, some of these are gonna be digital boards, billboards, things like that, where you don't have obviously a lot of time to tell a real long story. So, you know, it's just trying to figure out when the faster was, what we thought worked to kind of tell that story, you know. But I understand, I appreciate the comments, something we'll definitely consider as we keep moving it forward. This is the beginning of this campaign and will continue to evolve, I'm sure.
you're doing all that internally?
The design and
Yeah.
everything? I mean, no, we use, well, actually, Weidenhammer helped us with some of the digital design on this, and then we also have a designer that we use as well.
But the ideation is done internally. This is all the team. It's you and Megan
And a lot with Weidenhammer, actually. Jenny actually helped a lot on this.
Yeah, we
Megan,
co-developed this with Weidenhammer.
I think with visualize the accompanying picture with the softness of it and sort of like the pastel kind of colors and things like that really just make you think that faster isn't like a negative thing. I think it's actually really good because it's a nice clean ad, and in terms of a digital display, you get like a couple seconds to like say anything,
Right.
and like, oh yeah, I definitely want to get there faster. I would like to get to those 2 beach chairs as quickly as possible.
I don't want to spend the time traveling, right? I want to
Yeah.
be on the beach.
And I think that's the impression that's left in your head. I think if you have time to like look at this a million times, maybe you overthink it a little bit. But I don't know what other.
What am I fucking doing?
Okay, I'm gonna stop.
So, any other questions for Jenny before we move on? Just to quickly roll through some things on the website. All right, so Megan's gonna walk you through our website here in a second. Last time we did the update, I think we talked a little bit about changing and doing some of our marketing in Spanish for some of that community. But the one thing we realized before we did that, we want to make sure our website could also be read in Spanish and other languages for that matter. And doing that research, we actually found out that not just language is a barrier, there's 1,000 other things that make it difficult for folks to read a website. So we found what I think is an amazing solution for this, and Megan can kind of walk you through some of the highlights of this that we've now implemented. It's live on all of our web pages, so it's pretty cool. So go ahead, Meg.
Okay. All right, so can everyone see the Fly Local page on our website?
Yep.
Okay. So like Darren said, we talked about in our last meeting translating some of our marketing to Spanish, and totally agree that that's a great idea. But we wanted to make sure that we had that available on our website before we did that. having a translation available. So did a little research, like Darren said, and we came across, I also reached out to a bunch of other airports that use this service called Recite Me. And so Recite Me is an assistive toolbar that will allow website visitors to customize the content on our website so that they can consume it in ways that work for them. And so thinking about this, yes, there might be somebody who only reads or speaks Spanish that wants to get information from our website, but there might be somebody who has a visual impairment or a learning disability or sees things differently than you and I. And so we wanted to make sure that our website is accommodating for everyone. And just so we are clear, our website was always ADA compliant with the proper tagging and text kind of behind the scenes. What we're doing now is kind of bringing it more forward facing and with many additional features. So I'm going to walk you through this now. You'll see on our website on the bottom left hand side of every screen this accessibility and language button. So we're going to go ahead and click this, and this will bring up the new accessibility and language toolbar. So this is basically what this toolbar will look like on anybody's website that has Recite Me. So basically, I'm just going to walk you through it on the Fly Local page of our website because there's a lot of content here, and it'll give you a good idea of how all of this
Image, Fly Local page hero image.
I didn't mean for that to happen right away, but did you hear it?
We did.
Okay, cool. All right, so the first thing that you'll see here is
Image, Fly Local page hero image.
sorry, the play audio button. So the way that this works is it automatically comes on. You can change this in the settings to not automatically come on, which we will do after this. So basically the way it works is you just hover over
Take the pledge to Fly Local, Lehigh Valley.
and it will read it to you automatically. It will also read
Image,
to you
Fly Local logo.
the alt text behind an image.
Image, click for importance of choosing to fly local.
So on every image, we have text loaded onto it that is now reading to you.
Image, discover Lehigh Valley logo. Image, Lehigh Valley Chamber logo.
It will also tell you if there's a link.
Try our link, True Cost Travel Calculator now.
And
Image, click for importance of choosing to fly local.
when it opens a PDF, it will read the PDF as well.
There is a significant opportunity to sustain current and
It's always in a British accent, huh?
Yeah, that one I'm not sure, but
Well, depending
Is
on
there
what.
some research on that?
we don't read other languages.
You choose to have read, there's various different.
They will also read in not every other language that's on here, but a lot of other languages will read.
Yeah, we'll get to that. And then you can also just kind of skip forward and backwards with this tool as well. So we're gonna go ahead and just not have that autoplay for the remainder of the demo. Okay, so then the next tool here are your text options. So you can decrease the font size, increase the font size. And you can change the font for whatever might work best for you. We even have a font for Open Dyslexic. And you can change the line height. So really, really cool customizable things on here. The next field here is you can change the color. So maybe a darker background color works better for you. Red font with a white background. Or you can even select your own if you know the settings of what works best for you. The ruler here makes it really nice so you can read line by line. I know I struggle with that sometimes. And then this is called the screen mask, which will create a letterbox for more focused viewing to avoid distractions. There's also a dictionary, so you can select a word and the definition will appear. So then this is where we can change the language. And there's over 150 languages here. We are working with Recite Me to see if we can move Spanish right up here to the top, because that's obviously most important for us. I will let you know if we are able to do that, but we can go ahead and just show you what that looks like. There you go. And so Spanish is one of the languages that will read aloud.
El Aeropuerto Internacional de Lake Valley, AVE, es un activo económico estratégico esencial para Greater Lake Valley. El servicio aéreo es un elemento fundamental que debe integrarse en las discusiones sobre desarrollo económico regional.
That's similar to our British English. That was a Spanish, that's a Castilian Spanish accent, which isn't going to be well received in the Lehigh Valley. I don't know if there's a Caribbean or Mexican accent, but that's going to go a lot further here than Castilian.
I mean, I don't know that we're gonna be able to change the reader, or we can certainly ask Recite Me if there's a way to do that, but.
Yeah, I don't think that the accent can be changed, and I think that there's a specific reason that is the accent that is used, but we can find out more information on that. And then it'll translate the PDFs as well.
So this is for customers coming to the website to customize.
Yep.
How would they know that they can customize this? And if our people coming to the website are spending an average of like 2 minutes or whatever, are they gonna sit here and customize it? Is that like?
Well,
is that like a thing?
I mean, maybe this is, we've never had a tool like this on our website before, and we're very excited about it and hopeful that people will use it. And I was going to mention this at the end, but we're really excited because we will also get reporting on this. So we're going to get monthly reporting from Recite Me on the number of users, the tool they're specifically using, how much time they're spending on certain pages with certain tools, things like that. And then in addition to that, we can tie this into our Google Analytics and get even more solid information that we're still working on. We just launched this on our website last week, so we're still figuring kind of the rest of that stuff out. During our next update, we'll definitely provide more of an update when we get more data like this. And we're working with Colin as well on putting together some press releases and getting this out there to the community that we now have this available on our website.
Well, I think the other thing that I would.
When you navigate to the website, does it tell you, oh, customize the website?
Well, this little button down here that Megan mentioned is on every page with the accessibility and language. And I think the thing about this is, Tara,
I don't know if I would know.
you and I that probably don't have an issue reading the website the way it is, we're not looking for something like that. But for somebody who typically has an issue reading a website, whether it's a language or other, challenge, they are probably more inclined to look for a way to fix that, whatever that challenge is for them. This is a pretty widely used tool. Like this Recite Me is not something like there's a lot of airport websites that use it, a lot of websites in general that are using it. So I think that's the thing, and it's probably the more people are using it, the more people will look for it as well.
This is so you both made the point earlier that we are due for a website overhaul, and this bridges the gap.
Sure.
Right. What we will do in the next iteration of the FlyLVIA website is build in some dedicated Spanish component of it, some dedicated ADA components. This is, I'll be honest, it's a nice bridge, but I can tell you for certain that the translations aren't going to be customized to our needs. There'll be certain things that we should build in the permanent Spanish version of the website, and we can work with our marketing team to accomplish that, but that just goes into the checklist of things that we do with the next version of the website. But this will get us there.
Absolutely.
It bridges the gap.
So as far as the toolbar goes, that's pretty much it. The last two things you can do is have the page just in text only format to avoid any images, things like that. And you can also, if for whatever reason, you can download an audio file. So basically just select, the file that you want to download and download the audio file to listen to it later. And then the last button here is a link to the Recite Me user guide, which will explain all of the tools of the toolbar that I just went through with you. So yeah, we're excited about it. I think, I'm excited to see the data after a couple months and who's using what on here, if people are translating it to Spanish, and see what we can do with that data at a later point.
Thanks, Megan.
And that's everything we have unless there's any questions. All right.
Any questions for Darren? Or Megan? Or Jenny?
We're good.
Thank you
sir.
guys. Appreciate it.
See you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Goodbye, Megan. So, if I don't know if there's any new business for the committee. If not, I'll ask for an adjourn. Thank you, Brian and Tara. All right, I'm sure Tara will return shortly. Welcome back, everyone. So we will get started at 11:18 with our executive committee. I think Tara just stepped out for a second. We'll expect her back momentarily here. Welcome, everyone. We'll go ahead and do the roll call. Somebody can ventriloquist the voice of Tara.
All right, Matt Turk,
I'm here.
John Hayes.
Sorry, here.
Yep. Brian Dames.
Here.
Mike Stershik.
Here.
Tara Zirinsky. Here.
Perfect time.
Full house.
Awesome. Do we have any public comment?
We do not, sir.
Okay. We have 2 action items for the executive committee, and then I believe we have an update in executive session. So first order of business is to approve our meeting minutes from April 22nd, which are in Novus. Assuming you've had an opportunity to review, I'll take a motion to approve those minutes as presented.
So moved.
John, thank you, and I'll take a second. Brian, thank you. All in favor of approving the meeting minutes of April 22nd, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved, thank you. Similarly, you will find the Florio Perucci invoice for April 2021 in Novus. I hope you had an opportunity to review. I would ask for a motion to approve that invoice as presented.
Second.
I'll give Brian the first and Tara the second. All in favor of approving the invoice as presented, please say aye.
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 All right, that is unanimous. The invoice is approved. Do we have any new business for the executive committee? There is not. Judge, would you please take a moment to describe the nature of the potential executive session?
Yes, I want to report to the executive committee on the 2 litigation matters, one relating to the bid protest case, which is now pending in the Commonwealth Court, and the other one relates to the stormwater litigation that has been pending.
Thank you, Judge.
Those are the topics.
Ask for a motion then to enter into executive committee.
So moved.
Thank you, Mike. There we go. Judge, would you go ahead and briefly describe the nature of the executive session?
Yes, we discussed 2 litigation matters. The fact that the taxpayer suit involving the bid protest case is scheduled for hearing tomorrow before the Lehigh County Court of Common Pleas. Also discussed the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus the Westchester Borough case involving stormwater litigation, and the request that we file a friend of the court brief in that matter.
So you're asking us to ask the board to file that friend of the court brief?
For authorization for us, that is the airport authority, the solicitor's office, to file a friend of the court brief in that case.
Okay. I'd ask for a motion to authorize the administrative team and the solicitor to file a front of the court brief.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I think you indicated that.
Yeah, and this is a vote from which I will recuse myself, given my potential future elected position at the city of Allentown. So I'd take a motion. And, yeah, Mike's got the motion, Tara's got the second. All in favor of approving that, or authorizing the solicitor to file the brief, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and I'm abstaining, and I believe John has stepped out, but I believe he instructed Tom, or told Tom that he would be voting positively on that one as well, correct, Tom?
You did.
So we will then forward that to the board tomorrow for review. And without anything else from the executive committee, I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Mike. And we do need a second to adjourn, don't we?
Second.
Thanks, Brian.
There you go, just in case.
Where's Glenn when you need him? And that will take us right into our ad hoc committee. We have a couple of updates here. Agenda. And we have a couple action items. So I will ask for Sylvette to quickly call roll on the ad hoc committee.
Matt Turk,
I am here.
John Hayes,
Stepped away.
Don Godshaw, Justin Grimshaw,
Here.
James Irwin.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Awesome, thank you. All right, I think we have, we did not meet in April, so we have yet to approve our meeting minutes from March 25th. So I'd ask for a motion to approve those March 25th minutes.
So moved.
Thank you, Justin. And second.
Second.
Thank you, Jim. All in favor of approving those minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
And that's unanimous then. So those are approved. And then Todd is going to walk us through the other action item, I believe, that was hinted at our finance committee meeting.
Yes, I'll make this quick. I know everybody's all tired, and we talked about getting back to that 2017 level and the criticalness of this project. And the board gave us authorization to kind of move forward on the terms previously. So this is kind of finalizing the terms and giving you comfort level so we can move forward, because the closing is actually scheduled for next week, assuming that the board approves. So it's two loans, and it's important to remember it's two loans. So we got the first loan is a $15 million, kind of that longer term loan. It'll be a 25-year amortization. It's a 10-year kind of initial fixed period. It can be up to 10 years fixed period, I guess you want to say, because the first 2 years, let me walk through that again. First 2 years are interest only. And then after that, you have up to another 8 years. And that 8 years is pretty flexible, so you could fix that for the whole 8 years, fix it for 1 year, leave it flexible, but we can determine it at that time what makes the most sense to it. So it's really flexible. It puts us in a really good position. We have a 7-year mutual call, which basically means after 7 years, either us or the bank can say, hey, we want to go somewhere else, there's better rates or whatever at that point. And I already mentioned the 24 months and the flexible interest terms. And then what you have here is based on a consortium. So we really wanted to get community involvement in this. Some of it was because, when we started this during the pandemic, so you didn't have a whole lot of folks jumping for joy to loan you money. So we were able to do a consortium with 3 banks, Fulton, Fidelity, and People Security. And I would be remiss if I didn't kind of point out Fidelity. That relationship started with Glenn Geisinger. He started that relationship way back, and that's come to fruition to help us with this kind of consortium. So Fulton and People Security, we already have relationships with. If you see on our financials, we still call it Lafayette Ambassador, but that's really Fulton. They changed their name now. And then we have Fidelity. So the 3 of them are working. The lead bank is Fulton. They're the biggest bank, they're the lead bank, but everybody chipped in $5 million to get us to that $15 million number. Then we have the second loan I mentioned, which is the $8 million, up to $8 million of grant funding. So what that does is some of these, particularly like the RACP, they take a little longer to get the money from when you actually are approved. It takes a while. So This gives you, they're going to pay for it and then you pay it back when you get the loan. So you can keep things moving along. And then so we borrow it, they say we borrow $2 million at one time, and then once we pay it back, it goes down to $6 million. And we borrow another $2 million for that whole 4-month period. At this point, I think we have about a little bit over $7 million in grants awarded. So that gives us the flexibility to use it. And initially, we were going to use it for, I think it was just RATP and the multimodal. But now we've expanded it to any of our grants because we're really going after the grants in multiple ways. And that's really going to help us out. So that just kind of bridges the gap between, hey, we got the funding, but particularly some of these state ones, they could take 6-7 months before we get the money back, and this will help us out, keep things moving along. That second loan is only being provided by Fulton. So Fulton said, we'll kick up to $8 million. Fulton, being the biggest one, wanted to do everything. But we wanted to spread the wealth. We thought it was a community asset, and it gives us a better leverage to some extent to work with multiple banks. Next slide there. And the other bank loan I really wanted to kind of point out, and this kind of applies to both of them. So you heard me say the first 2 years or the first 24 months is interest only. So it's basically construction, so we pay for it as we go. So as we borrow it, we're paying interest only. These are tax exempt, so we get that 83%, and it's based on a Wall Street prime, which is currently 3.25. Interestingly enough, that is our floor as well. So there's a floor, meaning that's the lowest that the interest rate could be is 3.25. The Wall Street prime, just for people that don't follow that, is done by the Open Markets Committee in the Federal Reserve, and they meet probably every 6 weeks or so. So that rate could change, in theory, every 6 weeks, in theory. It hasn't changed in a while, but it could. But right now, it's 3.25. It's been 3.25 for a while. That's our floor, so it can't go lower than that. And because it's tax exempt, we pay 83% of that, which is approximately 2.7%. Again, the first year's interest, like I said, is relatively small, meaning when I say 2021, I estimated $30,000 to $40,000. It's just not a lot. It's probably on the high side, just because you're only going to pay interest on it. We're doing this on a reimbursement basis. So we put out the money, we get it reimbursed relatively quickly on the big portion of the loan. And that's going to be on a quarterly basis. So you think about interest, it's not going to be a lot at one time. Once you kind of start building it up, then you'll kind of keep going forward. Both loans are backed by the net operating income of the airport, even the loans that are backed by the grants. Those grants that we're using are not the security, the operating income is. And the reason we did it that way is to save us on cost and administration. Because if you use the grants as collateral, it's a lot more processing and it becomes a lot more expensive. So we use the operating revenue, even though they're backed by the grants. It just was cheaper and it may save money for us as far as administration. And again, you're only talking about for that 2-year period anyway on that bridge financing. We've been putting that debt service. You see when I went through the cash flow, that $72,000 that we put in our operating budget, that's kind of like the full terms that we expect after that 2 years. So at 2.7%, that $15 million. So after 2 years, roughly it's about $68,000 a month, 15 at 2.7, okay? So we've been kind of setting aside $72,000 a month in our budget, just to kind of say, we're ready, we can handle it, we're good to go. So every year, every month when I go through, you see that below the line number that says future debt service, and it keeps going up. That's just to say, hey, we're getting ourselves ready, so it's not going to be any different than what we're already doing. That was kind of an internal restriction. It's just kind of for us to kind of make sure that we're ready. And then the third part is that the closing is scheduled for next week on the 3rd, assuming that the board approves it.
And so that'll hold on to that 3.25 rate. If the closing is set for June 3rd, that holds that 3.25 rate.
Well, the 3.25 it's going to adjust anyway. So it's an adjustable rate. So that's why I said that rate, 3.25, has been that rate for at least a few months at least. I mean, so they only meet every 6 weeks. So it could change. So let's say it goes up to 3.5. We would pay 3.5 times 20.
At that point,
yeah. So like your like a home equity line if you have a line, and then it adjusts when you go, hey, interest rates went up. It's kind of the same concept. Next slide. I think that's all I put on there. Oh, this is really important. I wanted to point out, and when I use this term here, because it really shows the flexibility for after that first 2 years. So the first 2 years we talked about that prime, right? It was based on a 3.25, and that 3.25 times 7 is 2.7. But after that 2 year, because we'll still have that 15 million that we're going to fund at that point, we can decide up to 8 years what we want to do at that point. So let's assume that on April 26th, that was the end of that 2 year period. We could have chose the 1, the 2, the 3 plus 3%. So in theory, if we took that number times 0.7, 0.83. So if you take that number, 0.21 plus 0.3%, is 3.21, slightly less than a 3.25 times 83%. We could choose that. If we want to go longer, you see that rate obviously goes up. Or we can just say, we're going to do 1 year, and then we'll do another 1 year. We'll do another 1 year. Or we can leave it and just make it adjustable. It gives us the ability at any time to make adjustments. And that's something that we really felt good about when we went through it, because originally the terms looked kind of high. I don't want to do that. But you have the flexibility to determine at that time and keep it flexible the whole way through, which is great. This has been reviewed. Again, when we do this, it's not just me. We have our outside financial bonds expert comes in and reviews it to make sure everything's on board. We have the trustee involved, because one of the things we did with our bonds this year is we wanted to make sure that we could meet that debt service coverage, because I think Tom alluded to earlier about that deferral that we did. Next year, debt service is a little bit of a bear. It's over $1 million more than this year because of that deferral that we did in last year to kind of help us out. So next year, we got $1 million more we have to pay. It's actually over $1 million, a little over $1 million. I think it's like 1.4, 1.3 $1 million more that we have to pay because we deferred last year. We wanted to make sure we can cover this and feel good about that, and we're comfortable with that. And again, this gives us a lot of flexibility. Rates are fairly good. We all felt good about it. And again, it's with all 3 banks. And the other thing last thing I'll mention is we are going to extend the relationship to Fidelity, because that's the only one we don't. So we'll open up an account with them just so everybody feels like they're getting a little piece of the pie.
Is Fidelity that's the bank that took over for Merchants Banker?
Yep. And everybody wants to be part of the airport. I think that was part of the draw when you go to them, because everybody wants to say that they've done something to help the community. And as Fidelity told me, big banks don't like to work with small banks. They don't like to work with them, but we were able to get them to do it on this project, so I think that worked out well. Good. So at this point, I'll open it up to any questions. It was just a few slides I wanted to talk to on the financing to make sure everybody's comfortable. I think the terms are good. Again, not just me, outside folks have reviewed it. We have a trustee as well. So again, it's a lot of hard work to get us to this point. We certainly needed the money. And I think the other thing, which we really haven't talked about, is we're using some of our Rockefeller sale to help us, because some of that we got those terms so we could use for them in this project. If we get more grants, we can use that money for other projects. Because as we were just talking about, there's plenty of projects around here. So if we can get more grants, that money that we were using for AIP can be used for other AIP projects. We got plenty of projects, so that just frees up some of that money to be used for some of the other things we need to be done around the airport. We got plenty of needs, so.
Thank you. Justin, Jim, any questions?
I'm good. I do like the fact that you're diversifying though and using multiple banks, and that we're sticking with smaller banks in the community. I think that's a great thing.
Thank you. Okay. If there's no other questions, then I'd ask for.
Just have a comment.
Yes, please.
Sure. I did want to say a big thank you to Todd for sure for all of his work on this bond series and really bird dogging this whole thing with the group, the bank consortium team. From day one to now, it's just been a lot of work, and he's done a great job. job pulling this together. I think it's a great financing package for the project.
I'd say, yeah, can we get like just a quick run? Because this is it's a great project, but if you can't pay for it, it ain't happening.
Always great to get 23 million in a pandemic.
Yes,
so.
exactly. So I don't know how many people can truly appreciate the difficulty of working with just one bank on a project this size, but to pull three together, and to Justin's point, pull three together, the small banks in our community, there's a lot of plaudits due to Todd and the team for this. And again, as you pointed out, a thank you to Glenn Geisinger, our former member, for assisting with this as well. So with that said, I would ask for an approval of the Series 2021 Airport Revenue Bonds for the Terminal Connector Project. Ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Justin. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jim. All in favor of approving the Series A resolution for the Terminal Connector Project, please say aye.
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 And that's unanimous. So those are approved. Thank you. There's no other new business that I'm aware of, so I would then ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Justin. And I will see you all tomorrow, correct?
Tomorrow, 4 p.m. Don't forget 4 p.m.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Tomorrow.